What's up guys, my name's Dychronic here on this Destiny 2 video, and today we're going to be talking about getting 100,000 score this week, the easiest possible Nightfall to do it on, which is going to be the Arms Dealer. So in this video I'm going to be talking about what subclasses, what guns, and the strategies throughout the mission to be able to accomplish 100,000 score in this week's Nightfall, to be able to get that 100,000 score powerful engram. And on top of that, this also allows you to be able to get 100,000 score, which is the first thing you need to do in order to get a lot of those unique weapons. Get a high score first and then go for a lot of low scoring runs to be able to get that unique to drop. Now obviously the unique for the Arms Dealer isn't that amazing since it's an exotic sparrow known as Tilt Fuse, but it is still an exotic sparrow, and if you want to go for it, you can. The reason I picked Arms Dealer over the other two, Lake of Shadows and Tree of Probabilities, is because it has a higher point potential than the other two missions. In general, Cabal enemies are usually a higher point total per Cabal enemy, and in this mission they're also very dense. There's a lot of enemies per square inch, and it's just so many enemies that you get so many more points. And in the past I've always gotten a higher score on Arms Dealer than any other mission, especially considering that Tree of Probabilities has infinite force, which makes it random, and it's short, and Lake of Shadows is just kind of hard and somewhat random, and honestly I really haven't had much experience with it, so I'm more comfortable with Arms Dealer. That being said, you don't need to put a lot of modifiers on it, making it a much more preferred option. Speaking of modifiers, the modifiers we went with this week is pretty much the same as last week. We went with Solar Burn, Match Game, Famine, and Extinguish. You can switch out Famine for another one like Momentum if you really don't like it, if you really get no heavy ammo at all, but in general in this mission you really don't need a ton of heavy ammo. And then finally for a handicap, we went with a 10 to 12 handicap. 12 is a little bit more comfortable. You're gonna have to do some finagling at the boss fight, but it's really not that much. And after that, it's just practice. Just keep running the mission over and over again, starting at the least possible handicap and modifiers that you can still accomplish the mission, and then working your way up to more modifiers, getting to know the mission little by little. Again, I cannot stress that enough. If it's difficult for you to do the way I describe it, remove some of the handicap, remove some of the modifiers, and get used to the mission. Understand the mechanics of the boss before you start pulling your hair out getting nowhere. As for our classes, I would say go with one Tether Hunter with Orpheus Rigs and one Titan with Melting Point. The other one can really be up to you. However, I would recommend a Blade Barrage Hunter just because their damage dump is just so superior to everything else. As far as weapons go, for the heavies, I would recommend having at least one Whisper for the tank, as well as a lot of the Chartreuse boys, and the rest of it is up to you. I always recommend Whisper, Sleeper, Thousand Voices, maybe rocket launchers if you have a lot of good rocket launchers with cluster bombs, but I honestly feel like rocket launchers are somewhat out in the meta. So if you have like another linear fusion rifle, pretty much any linear fusion rifle, those still work very, very nicely. In our particular run, we didn't have a Tether Hunter, but it's always recommended to have a Tether Hunter to be able to bounce supers off more often, and you get more points from gathering orbs and all that whatnot. As for your other weapons, your primary can be whatever you want as long as you focus your secondary around Match Game. Match Game being so, you have to match the certain shield type of the enemy to be able to do a decent amount of damage. In this particular mission, there are only enemies with Void and Solar Shields. There is one guy with an Arc Shield, but you can actually totally skip him, and I actually recommend you do. So as far as your secondaries go, pretty much everybody could be running a Void secondary, or maybe one person running a Solar secondary. But because I recommend having so many Solar subclass and you have Solar heavies, that it may not be necessary to carry a Solar secondary, however, it will do more damage since there's Solar Burn. Just make sure you have at least one Void secondary so you can take out those Flamer shields. And as for your last weapon, use common sense. You know, if you're using special ammo for your secondary, use your kinetic ammo, primary ammo for your other weapon, and vice versa. I personally went with a primary shotgun, a secondary auto rifle, and then finally a Whisper for my heavy. And as a last note on that, Escalation Protocol Shotgun for the secondary is always welcome and always very nice. So if you already have enough Void on your team, try to slip one of those in. As far as the actual mission goes, it should not be that difficult. This mission has been played quite a lot since the beginning of Destiny 2, so most people will understand it. I'll be mentioning a few things that will cut down your time significantly. The first section outside, there's going to be a lot of enemies. You might want to have some scout rifles on your team for those because of the fact that there are some that are quite far away. They're mostly fighting each other, and just make sure you just start chucking nades and getting as many kills as possible. I would say for every Chartreuse boy you see, the guys with the green armor on, use Whisper on him because it takes 3 shots to kill him. 3 headshots, that is, to kill him. That is without the Whisper breathing. So in general, you should try to get him in 3 shots so you can get full ammo off of him. So every time you see a green green boy, use your whisper, you pretty much can kill him for free. After clearing out that first outside section, you're going in to plant the bomb thing. By this point, you might have a super. If you're taking a little bit longer on this section, you probably will have a super. If you're going a little faster like we were, you're probably not going to have a super. But in this section, the next section that is, there's going to be a ton of enemies. Your goal in this section is to go and dunk the ball in the hole as fast as you can, and then just start supering everybody as much as you can. If you have a tether, make sure you super tether right outside that big door that everybody comes out of. If you have any other super, make sure you dump your supers right there. Try to get as many kills as possible, and then move the rest of it up the ramp towards those big chartreuse guys that are just coming out of the gate. And if you do not have supers like we do, just work as a team, move up slowly, one at a time. You're gonna have to watch out for the thresher. You might want to consider taking out the threshold, but the thresher does not give you any points. So if you're on a bit of a time crunch, just kind of ignore it. And again, do not be afraid to use your heavy on some of these Cabal enemies with orange health, and especially the yellow health chartreuse boy. And of course, as you're going along, make sure you're matching the shield type, because very soon you're gonna have a lot of void shields. After finishing up this section, go inside, kill some of the enemies, and then you're gonna be on to the big outside section right outside the main ship. In our particular run, we skipped this entire outside section. However, you can technically take out a lot of these guys. I stopped and took out the chartreuse boy since I was ahead. It was pretty much just free ammo, free points, and a free kill, but don't use a lot of your time in this area. This is where one of the arc shield guys is. Just ignore them for the most part, because the boss fight is going to have plenty of points for you to get back. And your goal in this mission is to try to get to the boss fight with as much time as possible to be able to get as many points on the boss. After skipping that outside section, recommended that you skip it the way we did, by going up to the left section, jumping up, and then kind of flying across. It is the safest way to do it. It's also one of the fastest way to do it. After doing that section, you're going to arrive inside where there's going to be the 2 tanks. The tanks are probably going to be the simplest thing in the entire strike if you have a Whisper of the Worm on your team. The reason that is because each one of the little jet things, the little wheel things that hold it up, take 2 Whisper shots to take out, and you have to take out 3 of those jets to be able to take down the tank, and that is just 6 shots of Whisper without whispered breathing, which also means you pretty much do it for free ammo. And as soon as you finish off one tank, have your teammates go over and activate both of the platform things, have the second tank come down, and of course do the same to him, take out 3 of his jets with the Whisper, and you'll be able to kill him again for pretty much free ammo. After taking out both of the tanks, make sure you start making your way up the ramp, killing all the enemies along the way. In this section, there's going to be some void shield as well as solar shields, so make sure you take out those appropriately as you move along. For the most part, you can keep your distance, don't get too close, and you should be able to survive pretty much everything that they throw at you. After clearing out the main section of enemies, on the platform there's going to be a couple enemies, and again another chartreuse boy. As soon as you kill a chartreuse boy, the gate or the door will open and the dogs will come out. So just remember, as soon as the green boy goes down, you're going to have a bunch of dogs to deal with. And again, the green boy, handle with the Whisper, pretty much free damage, free ammo to kill this boy. And again, as soon as you do that, kill off all the dogs. This is also a great way to get orbs. If you've got a tether or you want to be able to use your super to get other people orbs, use it on these dogs. It is definitely worth it. And it used to be a great place for heavy ammo, except for nowadays you don't get heavy ammo from orange health enemies anymore. You just kind of get them randomly. After the tank room, you will move into the room right before the boss. Now this one can actually be quite difficult. It's actually sometimes very surprisingly difficult. In this room, I recommend holding all your supers. Pretty much at the end of that tank fight, hold all of your supers, which is another reason why it's very nice to be able to get a lot of super off of those dogs, because you're going to be using this super on the boss fight. So make sure you hold them as you're going through this room. In this room, there's going to be multiple chartreuse boys, lots of flame turrets, lots of enemies with solar shields in them, and a lot of enemies with just regular Cabal shields. So you're going to have to move up slowly, just take out enemies as you go along, and make sure you try to get as many of the fallen kills as possible, because the fallen are going to be fighting the Cabal. You want to make sure you get those kills before the other team gets them, and you will not be able to get points if you don't damage them. As you move along, you're going to activate the elevator, and you're going to eventually pull a lever, and then there's going to be a big Cabal thing that comes down. Don't get hit by that. That's just embarrassing whenever you do. At this point, you should be making your way up the elevator to the boss and the final fight. At this point, we had around 88,000 points, so we did not want to kill the boss right away, because the boss offers about 5,000 score in regular scoring. If you did not know, before 15 minutes is full points, after 15 minutes is half points, up to 18 minutes, which at 18 minutes, your score starts to go down very quickly and you get 0 points per kill. I think at 15 minutes, your points start to go down as well. What you want to do is actually farm as many enemies as possible in the boss room before killing off the boss. And there's a lot of points that can be had here because enemies come out very quickly in large droves. So our strategy was dump on the boss, lower his health to about a 6 of his health, which should be about half a bar, get him to go to his tower rotation, and spawn as many enemies as possible. So as soon as you enter the room, clear out all the flame turrets, and then go in for your damage dump. Apply hammer strike onto him with melting point, pop your supers, blade barrage, use your heavies, get him down to half a bar of health, do not kill him, this is very important, and let him run away. Enemies will start to flood out of all of the doors. Then you're going to start killing all of these enemies. In my opinion, the safest location to hang out is going to be on the right side of the arena. So as you're coming up the elevator, if you're looking at the boss, to your right is the direction you're going to want to head. The reason why I go over in this section is because after the boss is done with his tower, which he should jump off pretty much immediately, he's going to land right next to that corner and walk away from you. This allows it so you don't get trampled by the boss or chased by the boss at all, and you also can take out the flame turrets as soon as he spawns them. And of course, it also makes you quite safe from all of the dogs that come out of the middle door. Pretty much immediately as he passes the middle door, dogs are going to start rushing out of that door. I recommend you put a tether on this particular location, and that should give pretty much supers to your entire team, because dogs will come out of this door like nobody's business. You pretty much should be able to throw down like 2 or 3 tethers if you have Orpheus rigs. A lot of dogs come out of that door. That being said, obviously we didn't have tether for this mission, but it is still a really good idea. The dogs are probably going to be your best source for points just because there are so many of them, as well as a lot of the Cabal are coming out, just a bunch of enemies. By the time he jumps in his second tower, he should have about 100,000 score. At that point, you're going to need him to get out of that second tower. If you did enough damage, he might jump out immediately, but most likely you're going to have to go and get one of those solar charges to get him out of the tower. Now, the best strategy with this is to have one guy get the solar charge, go around the outside where the kind of openness area is, and have the other 2 teammates sitting at the destination, clearing the enemies that spawn after you grab the charge. Now again, this is quite important. You have to have your teammates helping you clear the enemies at the destination, otherwise you're going to die in the process of dunking. As soon as you dunk that last ball, the boss will jump down. Just use your last bit of heavies, or if you got supers from that tether on the dogs, dump on him with the supers, and you should be able to kill him off no problem. And that's it. There's really not much more to it. The thresher in the area is somewhat annoying, but if you're moving quickly and you're still moving around a lot, it shouldn't be that much of an issue, but you can take it out if you want. I think it's actually a triumph to take it out if you want, but again, threshers don't give you any points. And that's pretty much it. If you have questions, leave them down in the comments down below. I'd love to help out. If you have a particular question about certain weapons or certain parts or perhaps certain modifiers, let me know in the comments down below. And of course, thank you for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hashtag made it to the fluffers in the comments down below. I will heart all of those comments and of course say some love. And of course, please do enjoy the fluffy animals that are on the screen now, which of course are going to be the aforementioned fluffers. And that's it. My name's Dychronic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.